So we have in the case of Jack Dorsey a fascinating case example of the multi-sided business platform coming from a gentleman who has done it twice with Twitter and with Square. We see that the Square strategy is a classic multi-sided platform, and you can see that both with Twitter and with Square, an evolution into a rather unique market position that is turning out to be highly influential and highly valuable. The takeaways then is that the if you are going to erect a platform strategy, one thing you see is that they're often idiosyncratic and they depend on rare events or sequences of things. It's doubtful that Twitter would have worked at a different time. Um, Someone else would have come up with it. Someone else would have marketed differently. It might have different attributes. Who knows? Maybe it will be 180 um, characters instead of 140. With Square, you would not have their success unfold the way it had if there were not a dominant US smartphone like the iPhone, nor would it succeed quite the same way if the iPad did not exist. So, questions about whether the multi sided platform strategy generalize are difficult. The answer is maybe. In some cases, you can, but there are certainly lessons you can learn from it and benefit from. Uh, so, starting on that basis, we need to take a look at questions concerning how do you make a technology bet. The problem you have, of course, is that new products are risky. 95% of them fail. And you can see in the funnel here that the odds that you're going to actually end up with a product that more than recovers its costs are actually quite low. Moving from this is from marketing data provided by Abby Griffin, moving from 3,000 ideas down to one successful over a period of time, that's a really difficult batting average. Now, this also is based on data from corporate new product development. And product development is an interesting question because you need to take a look, it asks you to take a look at where you stand now with respect to all the products that you have and to consider how you use technology to enhance or lever your competitive position. So the proposition that we have in front of you is that when you're going to make a smart bet on a product or a technology, you need to have a smart strategy. And what you need then to do is figure out if a strategy is smart. In this class, you do it first to figure by figuring out where the product or technology fits in your portfolio and how that tech changes your value proposition. It's then important that you also evaluate the technology in its own right and the product, with respect to stage of development, fit, position, all that sort of stuff. And only after you get done with all that do you place your bet. So the proposition of this class is we can provide you with fundamental tools that can be applied over time in a variety of contexts to answer a host of questions that you will repeatedly face throughout your careers. So here's the process that we go through. First, we start out with product portfolios. Every firm's got a core product. It lies at its platform. That it's not a platform. It lies at the core. It's around which the product line is built. As you consider what comes next, the second product you can think about first is to move that product into new markets. That is, you target customer segments that had not previously bought your product. It may require some modification or not, but you're serving new customer segments. You can focus on product extensions. Product extensions are changing features of the product, normally using technology, packaging the value proposition again, to serve your existing customer set differently. So you make the product more valuable to your existing customers. And then you have the question of breakthrough products. When you look at breakthrough products themselves, engage a whole lot of risk, but the notion is that everyone needs to take a flyer. Every once in a while, this is the high risk portion of your investment portfolio, and should be. You always should have a few products that you're developing that are perhaps just flyers. But let's start off with the first thing: figure out to what purpose, why you're considering using that technology and and applying it to a particular product to serve which need. That leads, of course, to a variety of ways of levering technology. If you think about the core product itself is based on core technologies which can serve as your platform. You build out from that foundation. Here we're talking about a platform as a foundation for on which you build new things, not as a multi-sided partner platform. So if you are going to move into serving new markets, you need ways to reach new markets. Oftentimes, then you're talking about alliances because you need to access distribution channels that will be valuable. If you're talking about doing more or different things for existing customers, technology is usually applied to enhance the value of the product. And you do often do internal R&D. You're going to do some external R&D sourcing, a variety of things, but there you're serving the customers you know better, and you're applying technology. Those improvements often are incremental, sometimes modular, but it's all along a continuum. Note that technology in when you're doing market extensions, you're often doing stuff that is external to you, and your technology itself is being used to help reach a marketplace and rather than change its value prop extensively. Finally, if you're going to be doing breakthrough products, usually it's radical stuff that you need to worry about. And in each case, you're moving from developing your existing platform off your existing platform product and technology into new technologies or into new relationships with customer segments. So we start with the product, the implications for which type of platform you're going to take a look at, and now you have to take a look at how you do determine what the strategic value of a technology is, what is best used to you. The process we're outlining here is simply determine the value of the tech, determine who it's valuable to, and then determine how you have to change your business model, your product, to achieve your desired outcome. So our starting question then is quite naturally, what is the value of our, I am sorry here, I've got to get back to the right question. I don't know quite how we hit end, so my apologies for that. So we need to take a look at what is the value of my technology. In this class, we started off with life stage, so we start here again as well. What's the life stage of my technology? The reason we know that different things happen at different stages and different factors, in, for example, uniqueness or complementary assets, differ in value over the lifetime of a particular product. And our proposition, let's take a look at how uniqueness and complementary assets influence our decision, our strategic options with respect to sourcing the goods, and that is sell or to make. And so let's take a look at two examples where we use stage. The first model we reviewed in this class took a look at the question of product life cycle. We see here that if we simply map uniqueness and the value of uniqueness and the value of complementary assets onto the product life cycle, it tells you early on that uniqueness, differentiation is important. Later on, it's the ability to control complementary assets. In particular, I've found my experience is that channels of distribution are awfully important in later stages, and that they dominate. So we know what's important in varies over the life cycle of a particular product. We can also start to think about whether or not a dominant design exists. It should be familiar to you that the value of uniqueness differs in pre-dominant design phase. Uniqueness varies in later stages. It's not uniqueness, but it's rather your ability to compete on economies of scale, scope, and what have you. When we start to map those together, along with our first question we had about appropriation, which was simply the appropriability regime, we see that there are different strategic implications that are directly related to the stage of the product life cycle. If you're in predominant design and appropriability is weak, you compete by trying to get the design right. Okay. If your appropriability regime is weak, but you're in a dominant design period, the way you compete at that phase is to try to tie up the key complementary resources that are needed to control. So they're oftentimes whether or not you lever a technology depends on its relationship to and it's to all the other complementary assets that are required to compete in that market. If you can reduce or eliminate the need for a particular new uh, an existing asset, so disrupt the value chain in ways by providing a technology that puts you in the driver's seat instead of someone else, you're in great shape. When the appropriability regime is tight, you get to have more fun because your intellectual property is secure. You just have time to figure things out. So we can move. So that's just one notion of how two concepts, dominant design and life cycle, dictate strategic decisions. Now we can also take a look at the same factors when applied to a particular product, and in particular to questions about how you're going to use a technology to change that product to identify other choices or strategic options that you have. One of the things that we're familiar with already was Quack's article, which was taking a look at the role of IP and complementary assets. How do you commercialize your product? Well, remember the dimensions of Quack's article were complementary assets, whether they're rare or not. If they're rare and owned by powerful incumbents, you're in one bargaining position. If they're not, then it's less of an issue. And then you can take a look at intellectual property, weak or strong. In the cell where complementary assets are not rare and IP is weak, you can profit. Okay, it's possible for innovators to profit. If your IP is weak, but and the role of complementary assets is strong, it's going to be difficult for you to profit from the introduction of a product or technology because of the role of complementary assets and the bargaining power exerted by incumbents. If your IP is strong and complementary assets are rare, you're in the driver's seat, man. You can have a whole lot of fun. And then if your IP is strong, but you need complementary assets, then you got to come out and figure out you're going to have to share the profits in order for you to achieve a market position. The strategic options are straightforward. If the complementary assets are not important, they're free, or there's nothing that is out there, and your IP is weak, you want to be fast or you want to be stealthy. So do it quickly or do it in ways that people don't notice until you suddenly can say, "Ta-da!" If complementary assets are powerful and your IP is weak, then you got to play a partnership strategy, and you probably have to prove to them that you're really valuable. In other words, and the odds that you're going to profit are good, but you have to prove to them that you're worthwhile, and the value you extract is probably approximately equivalent to the value that you add to their existing products. When IP is strong, but complementary assets are not that important, you work the value chain to establish a market position, but here you're doing it yourself, and you can enter a market. You got to be canny here, but that's really the make option. If your IP is strong, but the assets are owned by somebody else, then you better license or partner. So we can see that the relationship between the technology and product and the role of complementary assets and IP imply different strategic options. Another set of questions that you need to ask is, how does the technology change your position or influence the business model? And here we can start throwing a variety of different questions at different cells of the business model. And you can ask yourself, how does it change your bargaining position, relationships with customers, and so forth to affect your competitive position? Um, with respect to a technology, does that particular technology, does that particular product alter the importance of a customer? Okay, if it's low or high, are you dependent upon a particular customer? How vital are they to you? If you, and generally speaking, you're better off if you can reduce customer importance or dependence rather than not. How about technology clock speed? How fast do you have to react? How you can benefit from it depends on how fast tech changes. If it's slow, which could be the case where IP is often strong, then you've got a different set of options in front of you than when technology is moving fast. In fast moving markets, you have no choice but to strike quickly. How does the technology affect your competitive position? Does it make you better or make it worse than other competitors in the marketplace? Or does it simply keep you at parity? The role of interdependence is one of complementary assets in supplier and vendor relationships. If it's low, you got lots of suppliers. If you have few suppliers, then you're highly interdependent and you're in a less powerful position. Architectural complexity and direction is, does the technology itself contribute to or part of an integrated production process, or is it modular? So here you're trying to benefit in different ways. If it's something that you're trying to do by yourself, that it is not highly interdependent on other people, you're profiting from a standalone strategy. If it's modular or building into some place where the network effects dominate, then you have different options available to you, probably more valuable. But it's important to understand that the value is going to be derived from a network relationship rather than from the value you yourself can directly extract from the marketplace. Another question that you should ask is how or should you change your position in the value chain? If a technology allows you to, or forces you to make choices, the questions are to internalize or not. Generally speaking, you want to internalize when customers are important, when quality is variable, and clock speed is fast. Okay, all three conditions mean that you are liable. Others can come in quickly, um, and you are at great risk. So that your way to manage the uncertainty in the marketplace is to always stay close to your customer. Um, Generally speaking, what you're trying to do is minimize dependence, okay, and recognize too that modularity is both a can be a plus or a minus. It tends to be bad for incumbents, so you need to watch out if you happen to be an incumbent and the technology is toward moving toward increased modularity, you're going to be weak. On the other hand, if what you have is valuable to others and falls into a modular category, then it can be good for you. Finally, to conclude, some of the strategic options we have in front of us is the MSP. Does it make sense? Well, again, it's potentially available to you if you can position yourself as an intermediary and if indirect network effects are available to you. We'll talk about the benefits of network effects with respect to alliances more specifically next week, but the basic strategic questions are those identified in our readings for the day. How many and which sides to pursue? There you need to start in the best place and be in a position to deliver value to at least one side of that equation in a powerful way. With the design issues, you need to choose the number of sides and determine what it is you're offering to the customer. Generally, MSPs prosper by reducing costs. The best ones are able to deliver value to a side. With respect to governance, the question is you're in the middle. The things that you do benefit some, cost others, so you're in a delicate position, and you are vulnerable to having other people accusing you of being opportunistic and exploiting your market power. Therefore, transparency and fairness is really important, hence rules, hence engagement, direct engagement with the customers, and so forth. And in pricing, it's a dance. You got to be careful. As we saw earlier in the case of Square, Square is making a variety of pricing decisions that tailor themselves very well to serve the small to medium sized customer and that serve the needs of these businesses that have small tickets. Um, but in order to win the business of Starbucks, they are actually losing money on any charge made at Starbucks that costs less than $5. Specifically, they lose a dime. Square loses a dime on every less than $5 transaction that they execute for Starbucks, and hence the need to forge a different form of relationship where a partnership in which you lose a dime on a transaction is made up for by taking down capital and doing other things in your relationship with them to provide sources of value. Next week, we're going to be talking about alliances. I look forward to talking about both how to choose a tech strategy and to manage alliances with you in class next time.